Getting there.
Okay.
Gotta share my screen. Okay.
All right. Good morning and welcome to the Sprint 15 review report. A lot of work has been done this sprint. A lot of it has been planning work, and Marianne, our line has been muted, it said.
Try again. Marianne, can you hear us?
I can now. Sorry.
Okay. So, again, good morning. Welcome to the Sprint 15 review report. Next slide, please. Okay, there's a lot of work has been done this sprint, which we will review. One of the things that's not in this overview is that a lot of work has been done on the Trello boards. We have, I think, pretty much most of the work now outlined on trello.com/ManageIQ. So if there's something that's not there, you guys can start on the roadmap Trello board, and it should take you to some of the other subboards, and you should be able to see what's being planned and what's being worked on with links to various GitHub issues and pull requests, as well as design documents and public Bugzilla tickets as well. Next slide, please. Okay, despite all the planning, over 100 pull requests were merged this last sprint. So it seems like we're in a good pace. Seems like we're doing at least 100 pull requests per sprint, which averages out to, 33, 35 per week, which is really a decent pace. So as you can see there, 40 were marked as bugs, 27 pull requests were enhancements, 28 were technical debt, 5 were refactoring, and 11 were tests. Next slide, please. Okay. I'll turn it over to Brona.
Yes. So I'm working on a feature that will affect how we connect to providers. So ManageIQ was designed to integrate with a provider on a single endpoint. And this has required that all provider data be collected and exposed from a single server. So the feature that I'm working on will enable ManageIQ to connect to multiple different endpoints per provider, which will in turn give the end user the choice of scaling out the deployment of their providers across multiple servers. So they will be able to, for example, manage and expose inventory from one server, collect and expose events, or CAPNU from another server. So this feature is still in development and will be available in the near term. Next slide.
Okay.
Joe?
Yes. So along the lines of doing Ruby 2 and Rails 4, we now build our appliances on CentOS using Ruby 2. One of the main reasons is that Ruby 193 will only be getting security fixes through February of next year. And also Ruby 2.0 adds a lot of beneficial things, including a faster startup time when you load up a Rails console, but also worker startup should be faster based upon your I/O speed, such as if you have SSD or non-SSD drives. There's lots of other new features and new syntax with Ruby 2.0. We're not yet using those features, but we soon would want to. So all tests on Travis are being tested with Ruby 2.0 for commits and pull requests. And then Aaron has backported and We've got many of the Rails patches in our fork upstreamed into Rails master, and he has been able to backport, and we've been able to remove a few others. And we have a few of them listed here, the big ID columns and the memoist gem instead of using the active support memoizable. That's it.
Joe, and just for clarification, Ruby 1.9 will be end of life after February of 2015?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Right, next slide, please.
So, small enhancement we had, today we support preloading of or seeding of provision dialogues, and as services are becoming more prominent, we needed to be able to have these dialogues available and seeded on the system startup. So you can export and import those today, and we extended that you can take an export and have it on an appliance, and on startup it'll get seeded. And so we have we had an RFP to get this in to support some upcoming features. So we got that in this sprint. If you jump to the next slide.
Whoa.
Marianne, next slide. Yeah.
I did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Took a while.
Yeah, just there's a lag. Sorry.
No problem. Thanks. So one of the things we worked on this sprint was the event switchboard design. So the goals were really to have a common entry point where all events come into the system. And today we allow you to customize them, but it's not easily exposed. And we want to be able to have these events be able to easily be customizable to do other things like I have here synthetic events. We use this today where something like a power on from a provider comes in, and generates an event that then gets processed through policy or alerts. So we the record all events today. Right now we record all the provider events, but the synthetic events that we create today do not get recorded. So one of the goals we had as we were going through this, or we identified, was that we really need to start recording all the events that the system is handling. So from the design, what we want to do is take the EMS event model we have today and subclass that so that we can push in the MIQ events as well as the provider events. And I see probably down the road the ability to support something like a custom event, where today the MIQ events have to be predefined in the system. Custom events probably would not need to be. And so by sending all these events initially into the automate model through resolution, we can split up the events into their different categories and allow you to process there. Each instance would define what the event would do. It could, do a lot of what it's doing today. A power on marks a VM has started, initiates a refresh, maybe calls policy, raises a second event. These are all things that people may need to override, change, add their own events. It becomes very simple once the events get driven to automate for them to define how they want to process individual events or change the events that we already have in the system. And then, with the automate domain that we've introduced prior, it becomes easy to override and add new events into the system. So working on a design document for this right now, kind of finalized our discussions on Monday, so we'll be getting that together and published soon. And we're starting to really prototype this because events are a major part of the system, so we need to make sure they're, more than anything, that they're performant. So we're working through the early stages of that.
Cool. Recording all the system events, I would assume, also allows us to, in the future, display them on a timeline and kind of do some UI that we currently
Yes,
don't have. Right?
exactly. Yep. That is, another goal here as well. All right, next slide. Keenan, you up?
It was the mute on my headphone and the mute on the call. Okay, cool. Great.
Gotcha.
So the goals for Foreman, we've split it up into 3 higher level tasks. The first is to actually agile term, to do a deep dive of the API for Foreman. Our goals of that were to understand the Foreman API better and build a facade over it to match the way our system works a little better. The Foreman has a wonderful API, but it's very low level. So this allows us to get out of some of the lower level calls. And next sprint, we're going to work on implementing the refresh itself. Again, the goals are to flush out our workflow and to really get our data into the active record, but also get our inventory systems working, get our linking, all the good stuff. And then the following sprint will be to move that into the UI. The reason why we hit this approach is there are little fun things you can find out about APIs as you dive into them. So our goal was to not implement a model and then a sprint later to say, oh, we needed these extra fields or this isn't going to work. So that is this sprint. So we have successfully defined at least our higher level workflows, questions like who will be registering systems with Foreman. And so we do have 1 or 2 ways of doing that, but we're still working out what happens when a data center does receive a machine and trying to be very cognizant of the fact that sometimes you have different actors, you have different people with different roles in an organization. And sometimes a person who receives something on a shipping dock might not be the same person who wants to set up a database for our product. So we have set those up. We are registering a VM with Foreman. We are using API to fetch and update these hosts. And right now we're working on booting. It looks like there are just a couple of quirks with the data that thanks, Marianne. Yep. So sorry, persona is the words that I should be using for the Agile phrase. So we're using an API to restart the hosts. Unfortunately, we're just having a couple of little things to nail down there between properly setting up DNS, other entries like that. Does anybody want to see a demo, or is that good enough?
Yeah, a demo, that would be great.
Okay, cool. So I can just show you at least, let's try, that's right, they moved screen share, didn't they? Okay, great. So here we have our, I just created a UI. Then, and that will allow us, I said, hey, we'd like to do the bare metal machine. And we can see we do have, we were able to talk to Foreman and find an actual machine in our labs that's registered with Foreman. And right now we have a few variables defined. I tried to clear this out, but Foreman unfortunately doesn't let us clear it out. So this does have some of values from the previous run. And right now we have a host group of Raleigh. This time through, we asked Foreman, hey, what host groups are available. So we'll just say 7. That sounds good. We'd like to change the host group. We do want RHEL 6.6, the latest version of RHEL before the 7 series. And there are a couple of CDs or media options, ISOs that are stored on the server. We would like to choose from the RHEL server. There's just... Now, if you do notice, all of the defaults that are provided were from the original machine or host group that's there. So all of these are visible. I understand that somebody will not be running through a UI like this, but I hope that you can use your imagination and see this as an HTML provisioning dialog with these options and also with a default that's available that is a smart choice, either with the way the host was originally chosen, or if it wasn't, then the way that the host group is suggesting that we go. We do want just a regular kickstart. And so what we're going to do is we're going to send the values to Foreman. Here we did notice that we modified the host group. It doesn't look like I modified anything else. ID, this is the ID of the machine. And so if we go and query, oh, nice, good to see a bug in my demo, right? So in a perfect world, when we would go and query the machine again, we would see that indeed the host group has been updated to be 5. The other values didn't make sense for me to set, so sorry I didn't change those in the process. But that's where we are in terms of leveraging our API. And then from now, we will go to leveraging this. I'm using the word leveraging a lot. We will use this facade for their API and move it into the inventory process. Cool. I'm all set for that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Marianne, any other slides there, or are we done with slides?
No, that was the last slide. The next one just says questions on it.
Gotcha. So I'd like to put a few people on the spot. Rich, what kind of was the focus of Sprint 15 on the fleecing and storage side? And maybe what's the focus going forward as well?
Okay. Primarily, we're starting investigations into a number of areas. Primarily, Amazon fleecing, which is work we started years ago, and we're going to complete that. SEVMM fleecing, they still need to be investigated and scoped, both of them. Okay. Also, some small pieces of work on storage where we're looking at replacing our binary bindings to the NetApp API with Pure Ruby, their new Pure Ruby implementation, which should make life a lot easier for us, and sort of run anywhere, and we won't have to go through it and do all sorts of stuff like that. That's close to being...
Yeah, that's pretty close. Yeah.
Those are the primary things. Other things going forward.
Are we beefing up the tests or something as well, or?
Right. Mo is still looking into having automated tests for fleecing. The goal there is to start at the bottom and record like disk I/O, and then be able to isolate each interface layer within the I/O stack, so we can test each module, say, in isolation, as well as a full integration test from bottom to top. Mm-hmm. And still investigation into ReFS, and hopefully someday soon we'll be able to fleece that as well.
Cool. All right, thanks. Dan, can you give us a high-level overview of the work that's been done on the UI? If you can characterize the work.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, so we've been still doing the ongoing HTML to HAML conversions. I think we're getting pretty far along with that. I want to probably take a checkpoint next sprint and see if we can get close to finishing that one off. There's been some work done, a lot of work done actually on the I18N front, but there's a lot of work to do. We have the actual get text functionality in the product, but it's not yet being called. So we have a stub get text method that we're putting in, our I18N method that we're putting in, and we've been going through the views. We've got a lot of those done, but unfortunately there's like there another 6 or 7 sections, models, text in various places that needs to be done. So that's an ongoing project as well, but we've been doing a lot of work on that. We started doing the some of the prototype to jQuery. We're trying to get rid of prototype so that we become more Rails friendly and only use jQuery. And we've got some people working on that as well. We've identified most of the areas. There's a couple of other areas that we need to identify, but really good, strong headway on that. And then we've also been working a little bit on getting some of the responsive layouts going. We're trying to eliminate the DHLMX layouts. Trying to get off the GPL license for DHLMX eventually, but we're starting with the layouts because we have a lot of new screens to put in eventually, pretty soon, and we want to make sure that we don't have to put them in the old mode. So working on getting the layouts replaced, and hopefully get that done about the time we're starting to add some of these the new functionality in. That's it.
Thank you. Greg Blomquist, can you give us an overview of the work on the providers besides what Brona showed us on the endpoint?
Sure. So, just kind of recapping what Brona said about the.
Greg, do you have a camera? If so, could you turn it on so we can see you while you're talking?
Oh gosh, you want to see me too?
Well, I'm looking at nothing here.
You won't be looking at much more.
That's fine.
I sent you a Polaroid or something.
I've got nothing.
I'd like to see something better than little Lego people. Yay!
Is that better? Am I on? Is this thing on? Okay, so.
Yes, Alex, you're on. Okay.
In addition to what Brona talked about, I think I want to kind of re-highlight that really quickly because it is a really important feature that she's working on, getting the multi-connection work in. It enables us to advance with OpenStack, Rev, and Microsoft, those providers, allowing us to separate out events from inventory collection for OpenStack, allowing us to separate metrics from inventory collection for Rev, and then with Microsoft, they actually have a real requirement that the inventory lives in one place and that the events and metrics lives on a completely separate server. So it enables us to get through event collection with Microsoft. I think that's really important. We're treating Foreman as kind of the first kind of alternate provider to jumpstart this idea behind pluggable providers. We had a long meeting, I think it was during the sprint, where we talked about the underlying design and how we're going to try to pull in Foreman as something that we're going to treat as a provider, and along the work that Brona's doing and that Keenan's doing, we're trying to merge those together to make sure that we're going down the same path. It's still a very long roadmap problem, but we are working along those lines. The other thing is that I can't say too much about this, but Amazon is making an announcement today that'll be very interesting, and we've been working with them throughout this sprint to enable something that they're going to announce later today at a conference in Las Vegas.
Cool. Alrighty. And with that, I turn it over to, I guess, the floor of the phones for questions, comments, anything that we've kind of missed that somebody's worked on that they feel is important. Anyone? No? All right. So if there's no questions or comments, I think we'll end the sprint demo here, sprint review, and we'll have another one in 3 weeks. Thank you very much.